1. The woman alone in the old dark house. She's usually blonde, big-breasted and not very bright. She shouts things like, "Who's there?" Or, "Is that you, Joe?" Then she goes into dark rooms to see what's in them. Tippi Hedren plays a fine example in The Birds, as does Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. This scenery has been so successfully lampooned by the Scream series that it's starting to be difficult for anyone to manage it again, but if you must, you'll need to see a fresh path of setting up the tension. Pulling in the woman blind has been sufficed, as has having a man being hunted by a woman. But how about having the stalker existing inside mirrors, and only able to make out at arm's distance? What falls out if he finds a knife? To the kid's mom who isn't mom anymore. The child says, "That isn't my mom." A smug doctor says, "It's all in your mind, kid." The mom leads the kid off, and the next day both mom and the kid make the doctor's faraway stares. This was a staple in 1950s paranoia flicks like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Invaders from Mars, and was granted a new lease of life in Dark Skies. Serious thought is needed to pass on a fresh pitch. How about if it's the pets that are getting taken over, and only the children notice? 3. The experiment gone wrong. They say things like morals are for lesser mortals and the ends justify the means, then their creation jumps up and bites them. Think of all the movie versions of Frankenstein or Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and you can't go far wrong. A more recent example was Beau Bridges in Sand Kings, the pilot for the modern Outer Limits. Anyone planning on using this scenario should really meet some scientists. Many of them are weirder than their fictional equivalents, and they provide great material for stories. For the mob of villagers. Sometimes there's a ringleader, such as an old woman whose grandchild has been killed. Other times there's just an angry mob shouting rhubarb and waving torches. Perhaps the best example is actually in a spoof, Young Frankenstein. How about trying a calm mob? I can't think of a new way of doing this that would be scary, but maybe you can do better? 5. The priest who's lost his faith. There are two ways this can work. The puppet says your feeble god means nothing to me and kills the priest in particularly gory fashion. Or the creature says your feeble god means nothing to me and the priest steps up to the base and drives the beast off. In that location are fine examples of the first in Stephen King's Salem's Lot, and John Carpenter's The Fog. You could try holding the creature banishing the priest to the pits. I haven't caught that one yet. 6. People running through dark woods. People run about in the dark, screaming things like "Mulder, where are you?" and waving flashlights, followed all the time by a malevolent presence in the trees. This is otherwise recognized as the Blair Witch Project. The idea was brought to extremes in Pitch Black where there wasn't even hope for daybreak to get. A variation would be to cause it in daylight, but Big Arnie covered that in Predator. How about throwing the devil as an urban creature that is actually afraid of the woods when chased into them? Time for that angry mob again perhaps? 7. Playing with evil, dark forces. Somebody says let's play with Granny's Ouija board, the next thing you know a planchette is flying around the room on its own. This idea has turned up a lot on TV recently, and usually involves scantily clad girls, in shows like Charmed and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. The way to use this scenario without looking tired is to find a new way of calling up the evil. How about a character who mouths the words as he reads them, thus calling up the beast by accident? 8. Let's split up. Everybody recognizes that the monster is around someplace, but someone says, "We're off to explore that dark space. You exit the other way and we'll meet up later." Why does everybody always think this is a swell idea? Just watch Buffy TVS and count how often the gang lose each other. Or go back to the original Scooby Gang and watch Shaggy and Scooby get split up in every installment. Why not have them stick around in concert for a variety? Or perhaps they keep in touch via cell phones to foil the bad guys. Or, better yet, what about a giant that can split up and be in two positions at one time? 9. Free. The devil has been crushed, the victor turns back to the other survivors take the acclaim, and the suddenly resurgent monster chomps him to bits. In that location are decent examples in Starship Troopers and Deep Rising. One manner to subvert this would be to have another monster save your victim. Or how about doing something courageous and have your monster die first time? 10. Mental institutions, orphanages. If you're creating a list of inherently spooky settings, you may see that there aren't a whole bunch of choices. A proficient writer and/or director can theoretically get to any location scary. However, there's a challenge involved in turning, say, a daycare center into a place audiences will tremble at. Therefore, the few scenes that are eerie in and of themselves tend to get used repeatedly answering. Two of the most popular of them are mental institutions and abandoned orphanages. They are often old and decrepit, and mostly made of cold, uninviting brick. Mental institutions in movies almost always have that room in the basement where outdated psychiatric procedures. Think shock treatment or training. The routine of drilling a hole into someone's skull, at one time took home,